Hey guys, hey, I told you I would be sharing with you the first 8 weeks. I know that we uploaded the video for what was week 9 for the beginning of chapter 4 of Genesis on what's going on Sunday mornings with the sermon and going through the book of Genesis. And so I had said that we would try to get you caught up as well. And these are going to be a lot shorter than a sermon. I'm going to share some things with you guys over these 8 different short videos of what we talked about. But I think it's important to give you a little bit of background and some things as we continue to go forward. And so I'm just going to get you caught up with week 1 today. And one of the things that I talked about in week 1 was why. You know, some people ask, not that it's a bad thing. Nobody thinks it was a bad thing, but some people are like, so why did God, why did you feel God was calling you to start in the book of Genesis? Why not in Matthew or Mark or Luke or John or, the book of Acts? I did that one time pastoring a church. I started in the book of Acts. Was the first place that God called after getting through the book of Judges that I picked up halfway through. But I'll tell you the what I got from God calling to start in the book of Genesis was for a couple of different reasons. One, because it's the beginning of His Word. And I think with everything going on today and in our society and the questions that are thrown out there, people being swayed because of science or gender or all kinds of questions that are meant to confuse and put us in a path that is not in line with what God's will is for our life. That was the reason why God was saying, I want you to start in the beginning. I want you to talk about it from the beginning. And the other thing with that is, it is so important for us as we are sharing our faith with others, is to be able to defend our faith. We don't have to defend God. God can defend Himself. But when we talk about defending our faith, it's why do we have faith in God? And so one of the things that you'll see as we go through the first part of Genesis and the creation, the 7 days, and specifically the 6 days of creation. The seventh day He rested, but the 6 days is I will share with you some of the scientific things that really point to a creation instead of, as many scientists will say they believe, evolution. Which is always funny to me because the theory of evolution was created so many decades and decades and decades ago. But yet today, with all of the modern science, the theory of evolution is still the theory of evolution, whereas, the theory of gravity became the law of gravity pretty quickly. The theory of aerodynamics became the law of aerodynamics pretty quickly because science proved it to be true. It's not true with the theory of evolution because we have yet to be able to fully say that it's gone from a theory to a law. And so I have found that I've been able to do that as well as we go through here. I am no scientist. I'm not an expert in the field. The things that I share with you are things that I have learned in different places and different times in my life. But I encourage you to, go and research some of those things if you have doubts. Research the different things that are brought up in science about pointing to creation instead of evolution if you don't believe. That's always the best thing. Go out and do it. Lee Strobel was a very famous person that went out to prove God did not exist. And he went and did it, and he wrote a whole book series on it because what he found was, in trying to prove that God didn't exist, he became a believer in God and in Jesus Christ. And so, I always tell people, don't take my word for it. Go and research it. Read the Bible. Read what the Bible has to say. And then read what experts say about it, because not just experts that are, you've gone to look for the experts who say God doesn't exist, but try to find the experts too. Read both sides. Which one makes more sense to you? And then pray. Whether you believe in God or not, pray and say, God, if you're real, reveal yourself to me. If you're not, then I'll be on my merry way. Nothing hurt, nothing lost. There you go. So that was the feeling of the beginning. We must know the God that created us, because he created us for fellowship. He created us to fellowship with him. And so above and beyond everything, understanding why we're here is so important to the things that we do. So I'm just going to touch on the first day a little bit. And so I'm just going to read verses 1 through 5 today. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. It's awesome to me to think about how it said right there that he created the heavens and the earth was without form. So he has this lump of clay that he's got to form. But before any of that happens, there was darkness over it. But the cool thing is, it says the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. It just brings me so much joy, because I know that every time that something great is going to happen, when God is in the midst of saying, I am going to create something, or I'm going to do something great in your life, I'm there for you, and it's on the way. Have patience, have endurance, make it through. It always starts with his Spirit hovering over us. And so we see that from the very beginning of creation, that anytime anything significant is going to happen, the Spirit of the Lord is hovering over. And in verse 3 it says, Then God said, Let there be light, and there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. So the evening and the morning were the first day. And so the other thing that's awesome about this first day is that God created this light, right? He saw this light, and he said, Let there be light. And then he separated from the darkness. But this is not the sun, folks. The sun was not created yet. This light is him. It's his light that's over this. You see, the Holy Spirit was hovering over this formless earth that had to be molded and created. Like he put it there, and now he has to create it and make it fit for his purposes. And that's when the Holy Spirit is hovering over. And when the Holy Spirit is hovering over, when God is present, there is light. We see in the book of Revelations, it talks about how the light is him. The light is Jesus. The light is God. There's no need for the sun. There's no need for the stars. There's no need for the moon to reflect the light of the sun when God is present, because God is light, the light of this world. And so we see that, I always tell people, I said, light is something that you can define. Light is something that you can see. Light is something that is tangible. And then people say, talk about the darkness, being the same thing. The darkness is the opposite. Well, darkness isn't the opposite of light. Darkness is the absent of light. You see, darkness doesn't have any substance. It doesn't have any control over you and your life. The darkness, when there's darkness in our life, it's not something tangible that's being done to us or in us. It's just simply the absence of light. And so, in this first part of Genesis, we can understand that when there's darkness in our lives, turn to God. Turn to the one who is light, because when we're closer to God and that light shines in our life, it's transformative in how we live our lives. It's transformative to what's happening in our lives. Doesn't mean that we won't go through trials and temptations, but when you're going through trials and temptations and you are close to God, there is light on those things, and you can see the way God is using those things to mature you and transform you to be more like Christ. The only other thing I'd like to share quickly with this is it is so awesome that it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And when it uses the word God, it's Elohim in Hebrew. And this is a plural word that was used to describe God or to give him a name. And so it's the 3 degrees of that word. There are 3 different degrees to that word, and it's that Trinity. So from the very, very beginning of all creation, there was God the Father, and then there was the Son, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit were present from the very beginning. And so it's comforting to know that when God says that he has not changed, he is the same yesterday as he is today as he is tomorrow, that it's comforting to know that even from the first words of the Bible, we can see that he has not changed, that there was a Trinity, that there was 3 in 1, and that he's not going to change. You guys, you can trust in him. You can trust in his word. And so I just wanted to share that with you guys. There are so many other things with that, implications that have to go in that day one. And as it continues on, when we talk about the atmosphere and the stars and the planets and the moons and how close they were together, when it says he created the heavens, if anything would have been off even by 1 mile, would have been disaster. And so the fact that some say it just happened without intelligence, it just baffles my mind, because it would have had to have taken intelligence to design the heavens. Because if one thing was off by just a little, like I said, it would have created disaster for the rest of all creation. If evolution was true, then I could throw up puzzle pieces and they would land in the right place. I could just randomly throw a bunch of letters and create the Bible in its essence. It would just create itself, throwing letters up in the air, and it would form words and periods, and numbers would fall in the right place for the verses. So it's not 8, 4, 9, 6, 7, 2, 13, chapter 24 comes before 3. It fell perfectly in place, right? No, it was designed. We think the same thing. It was designed by somebody. Somebody wrote it, an intelligent designer. And so I look at the heavens that way too, because, where everything had to be exactly perfect. That forming of the earth had to be perfect. And so it points to an intelligent designer, whether we like to admit it or not. So, but that's week 1, day 1 of God's creation. It's awesome to see, like I said, God in 3, the Trinity, and then the fact that his Holy Spirit was hovering over before these magnificent things were going to happen. We can rest in that when the Holy Spirit is moving, something awesome is going to happen. And I know we see right now the Holy Spirit moving, and so I can't wait to see what God has in store for us today. Thank you, guys. I hope you have a blessed week, and I will be back on here soon to share with you guys day 2 of creation.